The harsh whistle of the approaching train cut through the crisp October air as Nathaniel Owens paced the wooden platform of Kingston, Wyoming's modest station, his worn leather boots creating a rhythmic thud against the boards. The year was 1875, and at 32, Nathaniel had finally conceded to his ranch foreman's persistent suggestion that a mail-order bride might be the solution to his solitary existence. "Train's coming in right on time for once," remarked the station master, pocketing his pocket watch. "Your bride's on this one, ain't she, Nate?" Nathaniel adjusted his Stetson nervously. "Yes, sir. Miss Nora Clarke from Boston." He ran a calloused hand through his sun-bleached brown hair, feeling unexpectedly anxious. The letters they'd exchanged over the past 6 months had been pleasant enough, revealing a woman of intelligence and determination. But letters couldn't tell a man everything, and Nathaniel had been careful not to share too much about the struggles of his ranch, the Lazy N, which was barely staying afloat despite his relentless work. The locomotive slowed with a screech of metal and a belch of steam, finally grinding to a halt before the platform. Nathaniel straightened his vest and stepped forward as passengers began to disembark. He spotted her almost immediately, a slender woman in a modest blue traveling dress, her honey blonde hair neatly pinned beneath a small hat. What he hadn't expected was the bundle she carried carefully in her arms, wrapped in a pale yellow blanket. Nathaniel froze, watching as she scanned the platform with uncertain green eyes. When her gaze finally found him, recognition flickered across her face. He had sent a daguerreotype with his last letter, and she approached with small, hesitant steps. "Mr. Owens." Her voice was soft but clear, carrying the refined accent of the East. "Miss Clarke," he responded with a tip of his hat. His eyes drifted to the bundle in her arms, which shifted slightly. I don't recall you mentioning a traveling companion in your letters." A flush colored her cheeks as she adjusted the blanket, revealing the sleeping face of an infant no more than a few months old. "This is Emma," she said, her voice barely audible above the station's bustle. "My daughter. I should have told you, but I feared you would withdraw your offer." Nathaniel stared at the tiny face, pink and peaceful in sleep, then back at the woman who stood before him, chin raised slightly in defiance despite the fear in her eyes. He knew he should feel deceived, perhaps even angry, but something else entirely stirred in his chest. A slow smile spread across his weathered face. "Well, Miss Clarke, looks like I'm getting 2 for the price of 1. He reached for her small carpetbag. "Welcome to Kingston." Relief flooded Nora's face, though wariness remained in her eyes. "You're not upset?" "Life has a way of bringing unexpected gifts," he said, more philosophical than he usually allowed himself to be. "The stage coach to the ranch is waiting. We can talk more on the way." As they settled into the coach, Emma began to stir and whimper. Nora gently rocked her, murmuring soothing words. "How old is she?" Nathaniel asked, watching the interaction with curious eyes. 4 months, Nora replied, not meeting his gaze. "She was born in June." Nathaniel did some quick mental calculation. "And her father?" Nora's shoulders stiffened. "He was a banker's son in Boston. When he discovered I was with child, he denied responsibility, and his family threatened to have me arrested for defamation if I persisted with my claims." Her voice was surprisingly steady as she continued. "My parents gave me a choice: enter a home for fallen women and give up my baby, or leave their home forever. And so you answered my advertisement," Nathaniel concluded. She nodded. "I had enough saved from my position as a school teacher to travel west. I know I deceived you, Mr. Owens, and if you wish to nullify our arrangement, I understand completely. I can find work in town." "Miss Clarke," he interrupted gently, I advertised for a wife because I need one. My ranch is large, the work is endless, and I'm tired of coming home to an empty house each night. I never specified that she needed to arrive alone. The coach jolted over a rut in the road, and Nathaniel instinctively reached out to steady her and the baby. For a moment their hands touched, and an unexpected warmth passed between them. "Thank you, Mr. Owens," she said, and the genuine gratitude in her voice made something shift inside him. "Nathaniel," he corrected, "or Nate if you prefer. If we're to be married, we should at least be on a first-name basis." "Nora," she offered in return, a small smile touching her lips for the first time since her arrival. The journey to the Lazy Inn took nearly an hour, giving Nathaniel time to explain his situation more candidly than he had in his letters. The ranch had been his father's, and before that his grandfather's, one of the first established in the territory. Once prosperous, it had fallen on hard times during the last few years. Drought had decimated his cattle herd, and competition from larger ranches was making it difficult to recover. "I have 800 acres, but only 40 head of cattle left," he explained. "I've been working to rebuild the herd, but it's slow going. I have two hired hands brothers, Jack and Samuel Peterson, and their wives live in cabins on the property." "And our arrangement?" Nora asked carefully. "What exactly do you expect of me?" Nathaniel considered her question. "I need a partner, Miss Clarke, Nora. Someone to help run the household, possibly assist with the ranch books, as you mentioned you're good with figures. And yes, eventually, I hope for a true marriage in all senses." He felt his neck warm at his own directness. "But I'm not a man who forces his attentions where they're not wanted. We can start as friends and see where time leads us." Relief softened her features. "That seems fair." Emma began to fuss in earnest, her tiny face scrunching up as she let out a wail. Nora shifted uncomfortably. "I need to feed her soon." Nathaniel nodded, understanding her predicament. "We're nearly there. You'll have privacy at the house." When they finally crested the last hill, Nora leaned forward to see her new home. The main house was modest, but solid, a two-story structure built of rough-hewn logs with a wide front porch. Several outbuildings dotted the property, including a barn, stables, and what appeared to be bunkhouses for the hands. "It's not much," Nathaniel said, suddenly seeing his home through the eyes of an Easterner. "But the roof doesn't leak and there's plenty of room." "It's more than I expected," Nora replied honestly. "It looks sturdy." A woman emerged from the house as the coach pulled up, wiping her hands on an apron. She was middle-aged with iron-gray hair pulled into a severe bun, but her face was kind. "That's Mrs. Abernathy," Nathaniel explained. "She comes in from town 3 times a week to cook and help with cleaning. I asked her to be here today to help you get settled." As Nathaniel helped Nora down from the coach, Emma's cries grew more insistent. Mrs. Abernathy approached with an interested smile. "Well now, what have we here?" she asked, peering at the bundle in Nora's arms. "Mrs. Abernathy, this is Miss Nora Clarke and her daughter, Emma." Nathaniel introduced them with a calmness that surprised even himself. "Miss Clarke and I will be married by Reverend Thompson tomorrow, as planned." If Mrs. Abernathy was scandalized by the unexpected baby, she hid it well. "Pleased to meet you, Miss Clarke. Let's get you inside where you can tend to that little one in comfort." Nora threw Nathaniel a grateful look as she followed the older woman into the house. Once inside, she found the interior to be surprisingly well-appointed, if somewhat sparse. The main room held a sturdy table with chairs, a stone fireplace with a comfortable-looking chair beside it, and simple but well-made furnishings. Mrs. Abernathy led her upstairs to a bedroom with a large bed, a washstand, and a rocking chair near the window. Mr. Owens had this room prepared for you. Said you'd need your own space until after the wedding. He's in the room across the hall." She hesitated, then added, "That little one was a surprise to him, wasn't she?" Nora sat in the rocking chair, adjusting Emma to nurse. "Yes, I should have told him in my letters." Mrs. Abernathy's expression softened. "Well, he doesn't seem troubled by it, and that says something about the man. Nate Owens has always been decent folk. Lost his mother young, and his pa was a hard man, but Nate turned out right despite it." After feeding Emma and settling her in a makeshift cradle Nathaniel had quickly assembled from a drawer padded with blankets, Nora rejoined her host downstairs for a simple dinner of beef stew and fresh bread. "I hope the room is suitable," Nathaniel said as they ate. "I can have one of the smaller rooms set up for Emma once she's older." "It's perfect, thank you," Nora replied. She hesitated, then asked the question that had been weighing on her mind. "Are you truly not bothered by my situation? Most men would be." Nathaniel set down his spoon. "6 years ago, I was engaged to marry a local girl, Sarah Miller. She died of influenza before we could wed." His voice remained steady, but Nora could see the old pain in his eyes. "I learned then that life doesn't always follow the path we expect. Your past is your own, Nora. It's your future that concerns me because it's tied to mine now." His honest answer touched her deeply. "Thank you for your understanding. There is one thing," he said, looking somewhat uncomfortable. "The wedding tomorrow. Reverend Thompson is expecting a standard ceremony." "If you'd prefer to wait, get to know each other better first." "No," Nora interrupted. "The agreement was for marriage, and I intend to honor it. Emma and I need the security, and you need a wife. We can build from there." Relief crossed his features. "Good, that's good." The following morning dawned clear and cool. Nora dressed carefully in her one good dress, a dove gray affair with modest lace trim, and pinned her hair up neatly. Emma, dressed in a clean white gown, gurgled happily in her arms. The ceremony in Kingston's small white church was brief but proper, with Mrs. Abernathy and the Peterson brothers serving as witnesses. Reverend Thompson raised an eyebrow at Emma's presence, but made no comment as he pronounced them man and wife. "Mrs. Owens," Nathaniel said afterward, testing the name as he helped her into the wagon for the return journey to the ranch. The simple gold band on her finger caught the sunlight, a strange but not unwelcome weight. "It sounds odd," she admitted, "but I suppose I'll grow accustomed to it." "We both have some adjusting to do," he agreed. Their wedding night was not what either had anticipated. Emma developed colic shortly after they returned to the ranch, crying inconsolably for hours. Nathaniel paced the floor with the infant while Nora prepared various remedies she had learned from other mothers in Boston. "Try this," she said, handing him a small vial of diluted peppermint oil. "Rub a drop on her stomach, gently in circles." Nathaniel took the vial with a dubious expression but followed her instructions, his large, weathered hands surprisingly gentle on the baby's tiny abdomen. After several minutes, Emma's cries began to subside. "You have a magic touch," Nora observed, watching them with tired eyes. "Calves get colicky too," he replied with a small smile. "Though I usually don't use peppermint oil on them." The intimacy of the moment, standing together in their nightclothes, caring for a fussing infant in the soft glow of lamplight, created a bond neither had expected so soon. When Emma finally drifted to sleep, Nathaniel carefully placed her in her makeshift cradle. "You should rest," he told Nora. "I'll sleep in the spare room tonight." "You don't have to," she began. "I want to do this right," he interrupted gently. "We have time, Nora." The following weeks established a rhythm to their new life together. Nathaniel rose before dawn each day to work the ranch, returning for the midday meal when possible. Nora quickly took charge of the household, proving herself adept at stretching their limited resources. She discovered that Nathaniel had been selling off parcels of land to keep the ranch afloat, and the financial situation was more precarious than he had admitted. "Why didn't you tell me how bad things were?" she asked one evening as they sat at the kitchen table, account books spread before them. Nathaniel ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she was coming to recognize as a sign of his discomfort. "I didn't want to scare you off, and I was. Ashamed, I suppose. 3 generations of Owens men built this ranch, and I'm the one watching it slip away." Nora reached across the table to touch his hand, the first time she had initiated such contact. "We'll find a way. I taught mathematics at my school in Boston. Perhaps I can help with the books." Her touch lingered, and Nathaniel turned his hand to grasp hers. "I'd welcome the help." As November turned to December, the weather grew colder, and the ranch prepared for winter. Nora found herself increasingly drawn to her husband's quiet strength and unwavering kindness. He never complained about the long hours or backbreaking work, and he always made time for Emma, who had begun to recognize him, reaching for him with chubby hands when he entered a room. One evening, as snow fell gently outside, Nathaniel returned from the barn with frost clinging to his beard and eyelashes. Nora had prepared a hot bath for him in the kitchen, knowing his joints ached from the cold. "This is heaven," he sighed as he sank into the steaming water, while Nora discreetly busied herself in the adjoining room. "You spoil me, Mrs. Owens." "Hardly," she called back. "You work yourself to exhaustion every day. The least I can do is ensure you don't freeze solid." When he had finished bathing and dressed in clean clothes, they sat before the fire, Emma sleeping peacefully in her cradle, which Nathaniel had properly constructed during his spare moments. "Christmas is coming," he mentioned, watching the flames dance. "I haven't celebrated properly in years, but I thought, perhaps you'd like to." Nora smiled, warmed by his consideration. "I would. It will be Emma's first Christmas. We should make it special." "I'll bring in a pine tree tomorrow," he promised. "And perhaps we could attend the Christmas Eve service in town." "I'd like that very much." She hesitated, then added, "It will be my first Christmas away from Boston. I always loved the carolers and the shop windows all decorated for the season." "Kingston isn't Boston," Nathaniel acknowledged, "but the town does its best. The mercantile hangs paper chains and holly, and the schoolchildren sing carols in the square." They fell silent, both contemplating the approaching holiday. The firelight cast a warm glow over Nathaniel's features, softening the lines work and worry had etched around his eyes. Nora found herself studying him openly, the strong line of his jaw, the slight crook in his nose from an old break, the way his brown eyes reflected the dancing flames. He caught her gaze and held it. "What are you thinking?" "That I hardly know you," she admitted, "and yet I feel as though I do." Nathaniel shifted in his chair, turning more fully toward her. "Ask me anything, I'm an open book. Why did you never remarry after Sarah?" The question slipped out before she could consider its propriety. If he was offended, he didn't show it. At first it was grief. Then it was the ranch demanding all my attention, and perhaps I was afraid of losing someone again. He paused. "What about you?" "The real story of Emma's father, not the version you tell strangers." Nora tensed, then deliberately relaxed her shoulders. "His name was Richard Tate, the son of my father's business associate. We were courting, though not officially. He was charming, attentive." She stared into the fire. "When I told him I was expecting, he claimed I had been with others, that the child couldn't possibly be his. His family closed ranks around him. My father, who had always been strict but fair, couldn't bear the scandal. My mother cried for days but wouldn't defy him." "And so you left everything behind," Nathaniel concluded softly. I had some savings and I sold a few pieces of jewelry, enough to get west and establish myself somewhere new. Your advertisement seemed providential, a chance at a new life." Nathaniel was quiet for a long moment. "Richard Tate is a fool," he finally said, his voice carrying an edge she hadn't heard before. "A real man stands by his responsibilities. And yet here you are, standing by a responsibility that isn't yours," she observed. His eyes met hers again, intent and serious. "Emma may not be of my blood, but she's under my protection now. That makes her mine in every way that matters." Something shifted between them in that moment, a deepening of trust, a recognition of shared values. When Nathaniel finally stood to bank the fire for the night, he paused beside her chair and, with gentle hesitation, bent to press a kiss to her forehead. "Good night, Nora," he murmured. "Good night, Nathaniel," she replied, her skin tingling where his lips had touched. That night, lying in her bed listening to Emma's soft breathing, Nora realized she was developing feelings for her husband that went beyond gratitude or friendship. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. The days before Christmas brought a flurry of activity. True to his word, Nathaniel brought in a small pine tree, setting it up in the corner of the main room. Nora fashioned ornaments from scraps of fabric, pine cones, and dried berries. Mrs. Abernathy contributed a string of popcorn and cranberries, and the Peterson wives brought over hand-carved wooden stars. On Christmas Eve morning, a package arrived from Boston, a small trunk containing some of Nora's books, a few cherished possessions, and a letter from her younger sister, Margaret. "My sister found the courage to write to me," Nora explained, tears in her eyes as she read the letter. "She says our mother misses me terribly, but is afraid to go against father's wishes. Margaret sent along some of my things that she managed to smuggle out of the house." Nathaniel placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Perhaps in time they'll come around." "Perhaps," Nora agreed, though her voice held little hope. Among the items in the trunk was a beautiful christening gown, hand-sewn by Nora's grandmother. "I never thought I'd see this again," she whispered, lifting the delicate garment. "I always dreamed of my children wearing it." "Emma should wear it," Nathaniel said decisively. "At the Christmas service tonight, we'll have her properly christened." Nora looked up at him, her heart full. "Are you certain?" "Absolutely," he replied. "The whole town should meet my daughter." His casual claim of Emma as his own brought fresh tears to Nora's eyes. Impulsively, she rose on tiptoes and pressed a kiss to his cheek. "Thank you." The Christmas Eve service at Kingston's church was well attended, the small building warm with bodies and candlelight. Reverend Thompson happily agreed to christen Emma after the regular service. The baby, resplendent in her antique gown, behaved perfectly throughout the ceremony, gazing with wide eyes at the candles and greenery decorating the church. "I christen thee Emma Sarah Owens," the reverend intoned, sprinkling water on the baby's forehead. Nathaniel had suggested the middle name just hours before, a tribute to the woman he had once loved. The gesture had moved Nora deeply. As they stood before the congregation, Nathaniel tall and proud beside her, Emma cradled in her arms, Nora felt a sense of belonging she hadn't experienced since leaving Boston. The townspeople had welcomed her without judgment, and now they smiled and nodded approvingly as the Reverend presented the newest member of the Owens family. Afterward, neighbors approached to admire Emma and wish them a Merry Christmas. Mrs. Peterson, the elder of the ranch hands' wives, pressed a small wrapped package into Nora's hands. "For the little one," she explained. "Just a stuffed horse I made from scraps." "You shouldn't have," Nora protested, touched by the gesture. "Nonsense. Every ranch child needs a toy horse." The woman smiled warmly. "You've been good for Nate. We haven't seen him this happy in years." The ride home was cold but peaceful. Emma bundled snugly between them in the wagon, the stars brilliant overhead in the clear winter sky. When they arrived at the ranch, Nathaniel built up the fire while Nora changed Emma into her night clothes. "I have something for you," Nathaniel said when they were settled before the fire. He reached into his coat pocket and withdrew a small package wrapped in brown paper. "It's not much, but—" Nora unwrapped the gift carefully to reveal a delicate silver locket on a chain. "Nathaniel, it's beautiful. Open it," he urged. Inside was a tiny lock of Emma's downy hair on one side. The other side was empty. "For a family portrait someday," he explained. "When we can get to a proper photographer." "I love it," she whispered, tears threatening again. "But I have nothing for you." "You've given me more than enough," he assured her, helping her fasten the locket around her neck. His fingers lingered at her nape, warm against her skin. When he drew back, his expression had changed, grown more serious. "Nora, I know we agreed to take things slowly, but I find myself—" He cleared his throat. "What I mean to say is, I've grown very fond of you, and of Emma. More than fond, if I'm being honest." Nora's heart quickened. "I feel the same," she admitted. "I never expected to find this, whatever this is between us." "Some might call it love," he suggested, his voice rough with emotion. "At least that's what I call it." Nora's breath caught. "Nathaniel, you don't have to say anything," he hastened to add. "I know it's soon, and you've been hurt before. I just wanted you to know where I stand." In answer, Nora leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was tentative at first, then deepened as Nathaniel responded, one hand coming up to cup her cheek. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing unevenly. "Does that answer your question?" she asked softly. That night, for the first time, they shared a bed as husband and wife in truth as well as name, their passion tempered by tenderness and the awareness of Emma sleeping nearby. Afterward, lying in Nathaniel's arms, Nora felt a peace she had never known before. "Merry Christmas, Mrs. Owens," he murmured against her hair. "Merry Christmas, Mr. Owens," she replied, nestling closer. Winter settled fully over Kingston and the surrounding ranches, bringing deep snow and bitter cold. January passed in a blur of domestic contentment for Nora and Nathaniel, their relationship deepening with each passing day. February brought blizzards that kept them housebound for days at a time, though neither complained about the forced proximity. Emma thrived under their care, growing plump and increasingly vocal. By March, she was attempting to crawl, much to Nathaniel's delight and Nora's consternation. "She'll be into everything soon," Nora warned as they watched Emma rock determinedly back and forth on hands and knees. "I'll build gates for the stairs," Nathaniel promised, "and move anything dangerous higher up." His casual acceptance of fatherhood continued to warm Nora's heart. In quiet moments, she sometimes caught him watching Emma with such tenderness it brought tears to her eyes. He sang to the baby as he rocked her to sleep, old cowboy ballads and lullabies he remembered from his own childhood. Spring brought new challenges and opportunities. The ranch's finances remained precarious, but Nora's careful management of their resources had stemmed the bleeding. One evening in early April, as they reviewed the books together, Nathaniel proposed a new direction. "I've been thinking about diversifying," he explained. "The cattle business is too vulnerable to drought and market fluctuations. What if we planted part of the south pasture with wheat, and maybe raised some hogs? They're hardier than cattle in some ways." Nora considered the idea. It would mean more work initially, but it could provide more stability in the long run. She tapped her pencil against the ledger thoughtfully. "We could also consider keeping bees. My uncle had hives in Massachusetts honey sells well, and the bees would help with pollination." Nathaniel looked at her with admiration. "You continue to surprise me, Mrs. Owens." "Is that a good thing, Mr. Owens?" she teased, enjoying the warmth in his eyes. "The very best thing," he assured her, drawing her into his arms for a kiss. Their plans for diversification began in earnest as the ground thawed. Nathaniel worked from dawn till dusk, preparing fields for planting while still tending to the cattle. The Peterson brothers proved invaluable, their enthusiasm for the new ventures matching their employers. In May, Nora received another letter from her sister, bringing unexpected news. Their father had suffered a stroke. He was recovering but had been forced to reconsider many aspects of his life, including his estrangement from his eldest daughter. "He's asking for you," Margaret wrote. "Mother says he speaks of you and the baby often, though he still struggles with words. I believe he regrets his harshness." "What will you do?" Nathaniel asked when she shared the letter. Nora sighed, conflicted. "Part of me wants to go to him, to allow him to meet Emma. Another part fears reopening old wounds. Whatever you decide, I'll support you," he promised. "If you want to go to Boston, we'll find a way." His unfailing support strengthened her resolve. "I'll write to Margaret first, see how Father's recovery progresses. Perhaps they could visit us instead when he's stronger. I'd like to meet the family that produced such a remarkable woman," Nathaniel said with a smile. As spring turned to summer, the ranch flourished under their combined efforts. The wheat field promised a good first harvest, and the half-dozen hogs Nathaniel had purchased were thriving. Nora had indeed started keeping bees, setting up 2 hives at the edge of the garden she had expanded. Emma took her first steps on a warm June day, toddling unsteadily from Nora to Nathaniel as they sat on a blanket in the shade of the big oak tree near the house. Her first birthday, celebrated a week later, brought the Peterson families and several neighbors to the ranch for a small party. "I have a gift for both of you," Nathaniel announced after the guests had departed. He led Nora, carrying a sleepy Emma, to the barn. Inside, he unveiled a beautiful rocking horse he had been secretly crafting in his spare moments. "Nathaniel, it's exquisite," Nora gasped, admiring the careful craftsmanship. The horse was painted a glossy chestnut with a real horsehair mane and tail, and the rocker base was sturdy and smooth. "She's too small for it now," he acknowledged, "but she'll grow into it." Emma, however, seemed to disagree with his assessment. She squirmed to be put down and immediately toddled to the horse, grasping its mane and attempting to climb onto the seat. "Like mother, like daughter," Nathaniel laughed. "Both of you determined to do things ahead of schedule." Later that night, after Emma was asleep, Nora found Nathaniel on the porch, gazing at the stars. She joined him, slipping her hand into his. "Thank you for the rocking horse," she said. "It's a beautiful gift." "I enjoyed making it," he replied. "There's something satisfying about creating something with your hands that will bring joy for years to come." They stood in comfortable silence for several minutes, enjoying the cool evening breeze and the chorus of crickets. "I have news," Nora finally said, her voice carefully neutral. "I wasn't certain until yesterday, but now I am." Nathaniel turned to her, brow furrowed with concern. "What is it?" "Emma will have a sibling come winter," she announced, watching his face closely. "I'm expecting." For a moment, Nathaniel stood frozen, processing her words. Then his face broke into a radiant smile, and he swept her into his arms, lifting her off her feet in a gentle spin. "Nora, this is wonderful news," he exclaimed, setting her down and immediately placing a protective hand on her still flat stomach. "Are you feeling well? Should you be resting more?" "I can hire more help for the house," she laughed, placing her finger against his lips to stem the flow of questions. "I'm perfectly well, and no, I don't need to rest more yet. Women have been having babies since the beginning of time, you know." "Not my baby," he pointed out, his eyes shining with emotion. "Not our baby." The simple phrase brought tears to Nora's eyes. In that moment, the full measure of her journey washed over her from frightened, disgraced daughter to beloved wife and mother, building a life with a man who cherished her. "I love you, Nathaniel Owens," she whispered, "more than I ever thought possible." "And I love you, Nora Owens," he replied, drawing her close. "You and Emma were the best mail-order package a man could ask for." The summer passed in a golden haze of productivity and anticipation. The wheat was harvested in late August, yielding better than expected for a first crop. The honey from Nora's hives proved popular in town, selling out quickly at the mercantile and adding a welcome stream of income. The cattle herd, while still small, was healthier than it had been in years, and the addition of the hogs had indeed provided more stability to the ranch's finances. As Nora's pregnancy progressed, her correspondence with her family in Boston increased. Margaret wrote that their father was improving slowly but steadily, and their mother had finally found the courage to write directly to Nora, a tearful letter of regret and longing that had Nora sobbing in Nathaniel's arms. "They want to visit in the spring," she told him as they prepared for bed one September evening, "after the baby comes and the weather improves for travel." "Will that be difficult for you?" he asked, ever attuned to her feelings. Nora considered the question. "A year ago I would have said yes. But now, I'm not the same person who left Boston in shame. I'm Nora Owens, wife of a hard-working rancher, mother to a beautiful daughter with another child on the way." She laid a hand on her growing belly. "I'm not afraid of their judgment anymore." Nathaniel kissed her gently. "That's my brave wife." October brought the first frost and preparations for winter. Nathaniel spent long days ensuring the ranch was ready, repairing roof shingles, chopping and stacking firewood, making sure the barn and coops were secure against the coming cold. Nora preserved the last of the garden's bounty, filling the root cellar with jars of vegetables, fruits, and jellies. Emma, now fully mobile and increasingly talkative, shadowed her father whenever possible, helping with his chores in her toddler way. Nathaniel never showed impatience with her interference, even when it slowed his work considerably. "Da fix," she would announce seriously as he hammered a loose board or oiled a hinge. "That's right, little one," he always replied. "Da's fixing it." November arrived with early snow, coating the ranch in pristine white. Nora, now visibly pregnant, found herself slowing down as the baby grew. Nathaniel insisted on hiring a local girl, Jenny Miller, to help with household chores 3 days a week. "You're doing too much," he argued when Nora protested the expense. "The doctor said you need to rest more." "I'm perfectly capable," she began. "Of being stubborn," he finished with a grin. "Please, Nora, for me, for our children." She relented, recognizing the sense in his request, though she chafed at the restrictions her condition imposed. As December approached, bringing with it thoughts of Christmas and the anniversary of their first days together, Nora reflected on the profound changes a year had wrought. The ranch was stable now, if not yet prosperous. Their home had become truly theirs, filled with love and the cheerful chaos Emma created. And she and Nathaniel had built a marriage far stronger and more fulfilling than she could have imagined when she first stepped off that train with a secret baby in her arms. The baby decided to arrive 2 weeks early, on a snowy night in mid-December. The labor was faster than Nora's first had been, but no less intense. Nathaniel paced anxiously downstairs while Mrs. Peterson, an experienced midwife, attended Nora with Jenny's assistance. Emma, confused by the commotion, clung to her father's leg. "Mama hurt?" she asked, her blue eyes wide with concern. "Mama's bringing your brother or sister into the world," Nathaniel explained, lifting her into his arms. "It's hard work, but she's strong." After what seemed an eternity but was in fact less than 6 hours, Mrs. Peterson called down the stairs. "Mr. Owens, come meet your son." Nathaniel took the stairs 2 at a time, Emma still in his arms. He found Nora propped up in bed, tired but radiant, a small bundle cradled against her chest. "A boy," she said softly as Nathaniel approached. "A strong, healthy boy." Carefully setting Emma down on the edge of the bed, Nathaniel knelt beside his wife and newborn son. The baby had a shock of dark hair, and when he briefly opened his eyes, they were the same deep brown as his father's. "He's perfect," Nathaniel whispered, gently touching the tiny hand that had escaped the blanket. "Just like his mother." "What shall we name him?" Nora asked. They had discussed several possibilities but had not made a final decision. Nathaniel considered the small face. "I was thinking James, after my father, James William Owens." "James," Nora tested the name. "I like it. Emma and James." She smiled as Emma cautiously patted the baby's head. "Baby," Emma announced seriously. "My baby." "That's right, sweet girl," Nathaniel assured her. "Your baby brother. You'll help Mama and Dada take care of him, won't you?" Emma nodded solemnly, accepting her new role with typical determination. Mrs. Peterson discreetly left the room, allowing the family a private moment together. Nathaniel carefully sat on the edge of the bed, one arm around Nora's shoulders, the other steadying Emma. "I never imagined this," he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "When I sent that advertisement east, I thought maybe I'd find a practical partner, someone to share the work and the loneliness. I never dreamed I'd find a family." "Love." Nora leaned against him, James nursing contentedly at her breast, Emma curled against her side. "And I never imagined finding a man who could see beyond my mistakes, who would love Emma as his own." She looked up at him, her eyes shining. "Thank you for saying 2 for the price of 1 that day at the station." "Best bargain I ever made," he replied with a smile. "Though now it's 4 for the price of 1, and I'd say that's an even better deal." As snow fell gently outside their window, blanketing the ranch in quiet beauty, the Owens family shared their first moments as a foursome. The future would bring challenges. Nora knew the hard work of the ranch would continue. Her parents' visit would test old wounds, and raising 2 children on the frontier would never be easy. But looking at her husband's face, alight with love and pride as he gazed at their children, Nora felt only certainty and peace. Their unlikely beginning, a desperate mail-order bride with a secret baby and a struggling rancher willing to take a chance, had blossomed into something beautiful and enduring. Whatever came next, they would face it together. "Merry Christmas," Nathaniel murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Merry Christmas," she replied, her heart full to bursting. The merriest one yet. 5 years later, the Lazy N Ranch had transformed. The main house had been expanded to accommodate the growing family. James had been joined by twin sisters, Clara and Catherine, 2 years earlier. The wheat fields now covered a significant portion of the property, and Nora's beekeeping enterprise had grown to 15 hives, producing honey that was shipped as far as Denver. On a warm summer evening, as fireflies began to twinkle across the pastures, the Owens family gathered on their expanded front porch. Emma, now 6 and reading well beyond her years, sat beside her Boston grandmother, proudly sounding out words from a storybook. James chased the twins around the yard, all 3 shrieking with laughter as Nathaniel pretended to be a bear in pursuit. Nora's mother, Elizabeth Clarke, who had moved to Kingston permanently after her husband's passing the previous year, smiled at the scene. "Richard Tate came to the house just before I left Boston," she mentioned casually. "He's a bank manager now, still unmarried. He asked about you and Emma." Nora watched her eldest daughter, her golden hair shining in the fading light, her face animated as she read. She then shifted her gaze to her husband, now carrying a giggling twin under each arm while James clung to his back. "Did he?" she replied, uninterested. "I hope you told him we're doing well." "I showed him the photograph you sent at Christmas," her mother said. "The one with all of you in front of the ranch house. I believe he was quite stunned." Nora laughed softly. "I imagine so." She touched the silver locket that still hung around her neck, now containing miniature portraits of Nathaniel and all 4 children. "His loss was our gain." "Indeed it was," Elizabeth agreed, watching as Nathaniel set the twins down and approached the porch, slightly out of breath. "These children of ours have endless energy," he complained good-naturedly, dropping into the chair beside Nora and taking her hand in his. "They come by it honestly," she teased. "You're the one who was up at dawn breaking that new stallion," he grinned, unrepentant. "Fair point." He nodded toward Emma. "She's reading that book you brought, Elizabeth?" "Yes, and doing beautifully," her grandmother confirmed. "She has her mother's intelligence." "And her determination," Nathaniel added with a fond smile. As darkness settled fully over the ranch, the family moved inside. The children were bathed and settled into their beds. Stories were read, prayers said, and kisses distributed. Finally, Nora and Nathaniel retired to their own room, the comfortable routine of 7 years of marriage carrying them through their preparations for bed. "I received a letter from the cattle buyers in Cheyenne today," Nathaniel mentioned as they settled beneath the quilt. "They're offering a good price for this year's calves. Between that and the wheat, we should be able to add that new acreage we've been discussing." "That's wonderful news," Nora said, nestling against him. "Though I was thinking we might put some aside for Emma's education." "She's so bright, Nathaniel. She could go to college someday." "A female doctor, perhaps," he suggested, stroking her hair. "Or a teacher like her mother was." "Whatever she chooses," Nora replied. "I want her to have options I never had." Nathaniel was quiet for a moment. "Do you ever regret it?" he finally asked. "Leaving Boston, coming west to marry a stranger." Nora raised herself on one elbow to look into his face, surprised by the question after so many years. "Not for a single moment," she said firmly. "Everything that happened led me here, to you, to our family, to this life we've built together. It's more than I ever dreamed possible." He reached up to touch her cheek, his eyes filled with the same love she'd seen that first Christmas night. "2 for the price of 1, he murmured. "Best deal this cowboy ever made." "4 for the price of 1 now," she corrected with a smile, echoing his words from years ago. "An even better bargain." 6, he corrected, pulling her down for a kiss. "And worth every penny." As they drifted toward sleep in each other's arms, Nora thought of the frightened young woman who had stepped off that train 7 years ago, holding a baby and harboring secrets. How far she had come, how much she had gained: a loving husband, a thriving family, a prosperous ranch, and the respect of a community that had embraced her without judgment. Sometimes the most difficult journeys led to the most beautiful destinations. And sometimes, a mail-order bride with a secret baby found exactly the home she was meant to have, with a cowboy wise enough to recognize a perfect match when he saw one.